mic is working. All right, so today we have an awesome presentation by Valana Hillard from Rasmussen University. And I know that we have that you're tuning in for this because we will find out about the FAFSA verification process, understanding financial aid offers, and there are several examples of award letters and what to look for. And here is, if you have a question during, Kat and I will facilitate the questions and make sure that they get to Valana as she's presenting. Again, Beth Barsness and Kat Klima. We're your co-chairs of Minnesota Goes to College. I work for the Department of Education, and Kat works for the Minnesota Office of Higher Education, so we really are a team in this effort. And Minnesota Goes to College, just as a quick review, our little weekly commercial is our state's initiative to provide high school students with the opportunity and support needed to apply and enroll in college, especially during this pandemic. It is even a bigger gap for some people to stay on top of the how and the why and of applying, and also completing the financial aid process. And then Decision Day is something that most high schools already celebrate in the spring, just to celebrate students' decisions post-high school, kind of culminates the College Knowledge Month and the FAFSA and DREAM Act events throughout the year into this one event in the spring. And so we will provide resources and information and support to schools as they assist students with those activities. We always urge sites to register. This keeps you in the loop on the things we develop to support you, our newsletter, some access to the post-secondary community. And again, as a reminder too, this is not just Kat and myself who does these, who creates the Minnesota Goes to College programming and support. We do have a steering committee behind us of a lot of post-secondary partners who will help us determine what is useful or what could be helpful as students transition. So next week, this is a little bit about our webinar series, and thank you for tuning in to these sessions or for watching our recordings after the fact. We kind of were coming up with this series kind of as we were going along, so we're really happy by how many people tuned in. So we've decided that next week, November 17th, I forgot to change that date again. So next week, November 17th, is the kind of the fall finale, and the topic will be supporting low-income and first-generation students in the admissions process. And we have a couple of presenters from the University of Minnesota Duluth who are putting together a really great presentation about that. And also, I think they're trying to include some student voices in their presentation as well. So that will be a great one to end kind of the fall series. And then Kat and I are planning some topics and some ideas for, I guess we'll call it spring, even though we'll probably start in the dead of winter after the holidays. So stay tuned about that, and we'll probably we might change up our WebEx format and use a more updated version where we can interact more, maybe see each other more. And you would probably have to register for each session instead of an entire series. So those are some changes for spring webinars. But we do, in order to plan for that session, we really do need your feedback about what we've already done, and maybe some ideas you might have for what is needed to support you. And I put in the chat earlier, if I can grab it, a link to an evaluation, and we would love to have you complete that if possible, and I don't think it's too long. So I just put that in the chat for all participants. Do it again. And I'm sure most of you received our newsletter, and I'm kicking myself because the link was not updated. So if anyone was dying to give us feedback from the newsletter, you couldn't. So here it is, and thank you very much for doing that. We really appreciate it. And somebody just asked, is the session being recorded? And yes, definitely all of these sessions are recorded. And let me just show you where you can find those, because we have that question a lot. So on our website, which is the Minnesota Goes to College website, you can go to site support. There's a whole page for these webinars. And all of the sessions that we've had, this, which there will be 10 total this fall, are here with a description. You can watch it on YouTube. You can access the PowerPoint and materials if you need the hyperlinks to things. So this is a really good place to come to find the recordings. And I will put that also in the chat for you. All right, that's out. Get back to here. All right, and just as a reminder, the Office of Higher Education, which is Kat's shop, they do bi-weekly listening sessions for all Minnesotans who are interested in issues related to post-secondary education. So their next event is next Wednesday. They're bi-weekly on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. They're going to continue the conversation about American Indian experience in higher education. And those, you can just go to that hyperlink there. Is that right, Kat? I see you coming on.
Yeah, it is. It is, and I did make a very quick announcement about the next public engagement call, if I could very quickly, and that is that Governor Peggy Simon will be joining us as the next public engagement call. So the topic is American Indian experience in higher education, and as I just said, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Simon will be joining us, so we hope that you can make it.
Awesome. All right, and then this is why you're all here today. I know you do enjoy this or that, but I know you're tuning in to find out what happens after the FAFSA, and we have an awesome speaker here today, and we really appreciate her time. She's Valana Hillard, she's the financial aid officer at Rasmussen University.
Now, is that better? All right, perfect. All right, so today we're going to go over, I've completed my FAFSA now. I don't know how much you guys heard, so I'll start over. My name is Valana Hillard, and I'm with Rasmussen University, formerly Rasmussen College. I'm also a member of the Professional Development Committee with MAFA. I served as the chair of that, co-chair of that committee for 3 consecutive years. So this year, I'm actually just a committee member. Today, we're going to go over what happens after you complete your FAFSA, and I'm going to get that going. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it. And hey, would you mind just telling us what MAFA stands for? I know, but I'm not sure if everyone on the phone knows.
Absolutely. That is the Minnesota Administration for Financial Aid Administrators. So basically what MAFA does is we help other like high schools, counselors, different people that may want help with setting up events for workshops they may be having at school. So we just are a good support for, you know, the state of Minnesota. Each state has a MAFA, so to speak, administration for financial aid administrators. So that's basically what that group does.
And you, MAFA has representation on our steering committee too, which we really value. So thanks for talking about MAFA. All right, I'm gonna mute myself in my video and take it away.
All right, perfect. All right, so the first thing you're gonna see here is that I've completed my FAFSA, and we're gonna go over our agenda. So we're gonna talk about the background, our intended audience, generally as student, parent, counselors, needs, responsibilities, and opportunities. We're going to talk about some topics we should understand related to post-FAFSA application processes. And we're going to talk about some desired outcomes. First up, we're going to look at the background. What students who have filed a FAFSA need as they figure out how to pay for college? So there's two types of students here. You have a student that may not go to college and a student that's likely to go to college. So that student that's likely to go to college has clear goals, they're motivated, they understand the financial aid terms and processes, they have a support system, and they're confident. The students that may not go to college tend to not have any urgency, they may be distracted, overwhelmed by the process, they're on their own, and they're uncertain or fearful. That's why it's important for us as college administrators, financial aid officers, admissions representatives to help those specific students to be in line with the students that are likely to go to college. So our leadership is important for those students that may not go to college. All right, so next we're going to talk about the essential disciplines to help students. So the student, there's a book that Chesney Covey has written, and it talks about the disciplines, the 4 disciplines of execution. Know what's important. How important is it to figure out how to pay for college? When does this need to be completed? So I believe that it's very important for the student to figure out right away how they're going to pay for college. That seems to hinder a lot of students succeeding in college because they just can't afford it. But I think it's more because they don't know the avenues to take to get funding. A lot of students, use their excess funds to pay for things that, probably aren't really intended for school. And then at the end, they come up short because they've used those funds for things not intended. I think it's important to explain to those students how important those excess funds are in future quarters or future years in their education, because once they've reached that aggregate limit, there is no more financial aid to be awarded to the student. So that is very important for the student to know. Also, act on lead measures. Each week, the student should determine what's the most important thing to them within their control. Students can do this week to make progress in achieving an objective. I believe in this area, the student maybe sit with their parent to determine what it is they actually want to do. Okay, I want to be a pharmaceutical tech. So I think it's important for the student and the parent to sit down, write a plan for that pharmaceutical tech and how the student is going to make those objectives and achieve their success in earning that degree. Keeping a scorecard, they should measure each week what they've accomplished the week before in those act on lead measures. So that would be very successful. The student would be very successful in completing their education if they are being active and objective in their successes and in their progress is the word I'm trying to say. All right, and the student should be accountable. Consistently share whether last week's task was accomplished and commit to a new weekly task. So after the student has measured their success, they should also determine what was accomplished and what they need to accomplish the next week until all those goals are met, so that they are successful. So those essential disciplines to help students succeed are very crucial in their success. Student priorities. Okay, so the student read and respond to communication from college is very important. Working in the financial aid office, we a lot of times have to send numerous emails or numerous documents to a student to complete, or they just simply won't respond. So the student will be sitting with a balance on the system, and it may just take, hey, we need a copy of your ID, something simple to complete their financial aid, but because they're not responding to us, it makes it a little bit harder and it takes the process a little longer. So reading and responding to communication from the college is crucial. The student can find the answers when they don't understand, and they can expect their financial aid checklist to change, not static. So it's important for the student to read and respond to the communication from the college. Also, clarify each college's gift aid opportunities. So how does private scholarships affect financial aid? I mentioned that earlier. Private scholarships help offset the amount the student is going to borrow. So that is truly important for the student to seek out those private scholarships. What does the student need to do to maximize gift aid from the college? So in inquiring with the college, what free money the college offers. Is there anything the student can do to earn any gift aid from the college? So it's our responsibility as a school to let the student or inform the student of what we offer to help them offset those costs, what gift aid we offer. That's generally discussed in our admissions process with the college. Record key dates associated with preparing to pay college bill. The student should notice their FAFSA priority dates, scholarship deadlines, job application deadlines, school bill due dates, loan applications due, and payment plans sign-up dates. So those are all crucial as well to prepare to pay the college bill. Next, we're going to talk about how the typical family pays for college. Now, there's a slide here. You'll notice that in the 18-19 year, 24% of students' parents borrowed from federal funds or private loan funds to pay for college. 43% used income and savings from their own personal wealth, and 33% used scholarships and grants, and relatives and friends kicked in. After combining the distribution of resources, the family income and parents contribute the largest share of college funding. External aid came in second, and borrowed money came in third. So keeping the amount of money borrowed is the key to reducing the debt the student may incur while in school. So I can't stress enough, scholarships and saved money will help reduce the amount the student is borrowing. Do you have any questions so far, Beth?
Not currently. I'll let you know.
Okay.
Sorry. I have to unmute myself.
All right, sorry. Okay, next, the percentage of college costs covered by grants versus loans, savings at Minnesota colleges in the 17-18 year. So you'll notice that in this graph, you'll notice about 21% statewide used grants and a little under like 79% used loans and savings. For the Minnesota state colleges, approximately about 15,000 grant was used in grants, or about 18,000. And in loans and savings, a little about 82%. So as you can see in each graph, loans and savings is the most thing that's used to cover students' debts. Grants are, they're good, and I always, stress using any grant eligibility the student has. Not all the time does a student qualify for grants, but when the student completes the FAFSA, the Department of Ed determines whether the student is eligible for grants, loans, or both. Next, we're going to talk about what our responsibility is related to students completing the financial aid process. It's our responsibility to clarify, motivate, support, guide, aid in developing a plan, keeping the students accountable, and celebrate the students' progress and successes. The thing I like the most is celebrating the students' processes and successes, because the more the student is celebrated, the more motivated I believe the student is to go to the next step or do whatever is required of them next. Helping them navigate through the process, making them understand, you know, in terms that they can understand, I believe helps them be more successful and guides them through this process. Next, we're going to talk about topics you should understand related to post-FAFSA application process. So we have 5 topics that we're going to talk about. 1, we're going to talk about what the FAFSA does and what it does not do. 2, we're going to talk about the FAFSA itself. 3, the financial aid offer. 4, the school bill. And 5, any additional resources. Topic 1. What does the FAFSA do and does not do? The FAFSA data is seldom used to determine eligibility for non-need-based private grants or scholarships. It also is used to determine the merit scholarships offered by colleges. The FAFSA data is used to determine eligibility for need-based grants, loans, and work study, non-based federal student loans. Students often look for their FAFSA money. There isn't any. Messages about FAFSA focus almost exclusively on federal aid. FAFSA submission confirmation pages tell students if they're eligible for the federal Pell Grant, federal student loans. Doesn't address any other types of or sources of aid. I want to talk a little bit about where the comment of students often look for their FAFSA money, there isn't any. So when the student looks at that, what it's called a student aid report. So after the student completes a FAFSA, the Department of Education generates 2 reports. One that goes to the school, and it's called an ICER, or the institutional record. The student gets what's called a SAR, or a student aid report. The information is the same, it's just the view of the information, or how we view the information. That's the difference. So the student will often look at that student aid report and determine that based on their EFC or based on these numbers that they're seeing, that they're going to get, you know, $6,345 in Pell Grant, and they're going to get $9,500 in student loans. Not understanding that this money is divided over the time that they're enrolled. So if you're in a semester school, it's split over 2. If you're in a quarterly school, it's every quarter. So it's divided over 3. So the student rarely understands that they're not getting this money in a lump sum, this $15,000 that they're looking at. It's not offered to them in a lump sum. It's divided based on the time that they'll be in school, whether it's a semester school or a quarterly school. Do any of you guys have students that think that this FAFSA money is just free and they're just going to get this money and not have to worry about paying it back?
Yes, we did get a couple of yeses.
Absolutely. And that generally is what the student thinks. They fill out this application for money, and the Department of Education tells them how much they're going to get, and they think they're going to walk into school and get that money right to that day. And it doesn't work like that. So it's up to us to explain to the student that, how the process works, and you don't get this lump sum of money that you can just go and, have fun with. All right, 2017-2018 grants and scholarships awarded to undergraduates at the Minnesota institutions was $1.51 billion. These are private funding sources here at $71 million. At the state level is $207.9 million. At the federal, it was $369.9 million. Colleges and universities, $926.9 million. So that is a lot of money in grants and scholarships that were awarded to undergraduate students. And here's the average cost or average annual expenses for a Minnesota college for the 1920 school year. At the state college level for off-campuses or off-campus students not living at home, the total cost is estimated at roughly $19,451. At a state university on campus, you're looking at roughly $20,454. The University of Minnesota is off campus is roughly $27,207. Our private nonprofit is on campus is $48,696, and private for-profit off campus not living at home is roughly $31,365. The state colleges generally is the lesser of the amount. A lot of the state colleges do offer grants. A lot of the grants and scholarships are offered at the state college level. So students, like if you go into a technical college, student would roughly pay about $19,451, and you can borrow less at state colleges because of these grants and scholarships that's offered at that level. Next, we're going to talk about where to find private scholarships, research what schools are available or communities that may offer scholarships, any organizations like churches, maybe the student belongs to a bowling league or the parent both, has some type of affiliation that offers scholarships. Application process is usually spring of the student's senior school year. So I would say, if I were a parent, I would start looking at the beginning of the school year for the senior to maximize as many scholarships that they possibly can find. Small scholarships add up. It could be $100, it could be $500, but if you got, $500 scholarships, that's a lot more than just $500. So here's some links that scholarships are offered at the financialaid.org/scholarships. And the Office of Higher Education also has some resources for scholarships. Next, we're going to talk about the FAFSA completion, the FAFSA application process. 5 things to do after submitting the FAFSA. You're going to review the FAFSA confirmation page, review the ESC, not always helpful because the student doesn't always understand what that is. Apply for as many scholarships as you can, as I've stressed that throughout this presentation. Be on the lookout for financial aid offers. Make FAFSA corrections if needed. Behind the scenes, the FAFSA database matches, confirm application accuracy, student and school verification, and the special circumstance that everybody loves. All right, so once the FAFSA is completed, a couple things can happen. First, the FAFSA can be rejected. A rejected FAFSA is one that does not have an ESC calculated. A school cannot proceed with any awarding until the student resolves the issues directly with their FAFSA. So as a financial aid officer, if I receive a FAFSA generally without an EFC, there's several reasons why. A, the parent didn't sign it, or the student didn't sign it, or neither one of them signed it. The Social Security Administration couldn't have confirmed their Social Security number. There was issues with their income. Generally, when you see issues with the income, the parent may put that they earned $20,000, and then they'll also enter that they paid $20,000 in taxes, which generally we know you didn't pay $20,000 in taxes on the $20,000 that you earned. The Department of Ed will kick that FAFSA back for the student or parent to make those corrections. Taxes paid issues, and I just said that, listed in the amount that they earned was the same as the amount that they paid, which is not possible. So those are some reasons why the FAFSA can be rejected. Also, there's some data match issues or C codes. So some FAFSAs are flagged with a C code. Whenever a FAFSA is flagged with a C code, that the Department of Education is relying on the Financial Aid Office to resolve that C code. The type of C codes we can see is Social Security Administration, the confirmation of a student's citizenship. So if the student enters their social, or maybe they have an alien ID and the Social Security Administration Department doesn't confirm that student, they will flag the student. What the student is then required to do is provide proof of their citizenship to the school to verify that that student is a legal citizen, which you have to be in order to receive financial aid. Selective service requires males to register for selective service once they've turned 18. Some situations you'll have a student that maybe lived in Africa and decided to come over to the U.S. and go to school at age 35. Well, they were not here at age 26, so that student couldn't register for selective service. At that point, the student could provide the school documentation showing that they were not admitted into the U.S. until after their age of 26, and we'll accept that documentation proving when they actually entered the country. Homeland Security, confirmation of eligible non-citizenship status. National Student Loan Data System shows that a student may have loans in default, unusual enrollment histories. The student may have overpaid on their financial aid or have been overpaid in financial aid at a previous school. The student has reached their maximum in grant eligibility. So all of those things will generate a C code for the Financial Aid Office to review, and we then communicate that information with the student and what we need to resolve those C codes. Another process that happens after the FAFSA has been completed is verification. Now, verification is where the department will select the student's application for what's called verification. Now, the Department of Ed has advised us that they select 30% of a school's population randomly. Now, the student doesn't feel that way. They feel like every year the Department of Education is picking on me. Every year I get selected for verification. And it's generally a random selection. So not all students understand that, but it is random. Also, the school has the ability to select a student that the Department of Ed may not have selected for verification. If we review an application and we see information that just does not make sense, we do have the ability to select that application and verify the information on the application. So verification is the process used by the institution to check the accuracy of the information the student, and in the case of a dependent student, the student's parents provided when applying for federal student aid via the FAFSA. The information is verified by obtaining documentation, including in some cases a signed statement or worksheet attesting to the accuracy of the information. Verification ensures the accuracy of data used to establish eligibility for need-based federal student aid. So sometimes verification can help the student receive financial aid, and sometimes verification can put the student in a situation where they may not qualify for grants, but they would still qualify for loans. So verification is there's three types of people that the department will select. There's a V1 verification where the Department of Ed really wants to verify the student's household size. When the student completes the FAFSA, if the student has transferred their data directly from the IRS website onto that FAFSA, which is the IRS data retrieval tool, it makes the V1 process much easier because at that point, all we need to collect from the student is the verification worksheet. With transferred data, we don't require the student to provide their taxes simply because that information we know came directly from the IRS. If the student failed to use that IRS data retrieval tool, at that point they would provide their verification worksheet as well as a copy of their signed taxes or their tax transcript for the year we're requesting the information for. There's a V4 verification. With a V4 verification, we're simply verifying the student has completed high school. So the student completes the documentation, they provide a copy of their ID, and they provide copies of their high school diploma or high school transcript to prove that they have completed high school. That is the V4 verification. And V5 verification is a combination of V1 and V4. So we would verify the house school, verify the student household size, we verify that they completed high school in the V5 verification. Do any of you guys have issues where students come to you about verification, not understanding that process, or feel like they've always been selected, or questions about verification?
I don't see any answers in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what? Okay. So what does the student need to do to complete verification? We basically discussed that. I just went over the details of that. Tax filers must verify their adjusted gross income, taxes paid, untaxed portions of their IRA or distributions, untaxed portions of pensions, IRA deductions of payments, taxes of interest income, education tax credit, household size, number in college. The non-tax filers must verify income earned from work by providing their W-2s, their household size, number in college. Here's just a guide for the 2018 verification data and federal tax forms. The Financial Aid Office uses this income to determine what the student has put on their FAFSA, what lines that we can find the information that we need to verify the data. So that's for the 2018 verification data. And that's page 2 of that and page 3. I've also attached a copy of a 2018 IRS 1040, Schedules 1, 2, and 3. So those are very important forms if the student does get selected for verification, because if they did not use that data retrieval tool, they will need to provide copies of their signed taxes, as well as any schedules that the student may have filed. And this is a 2019 IRS form, which looks like the previous form. All right, we're going to talk about those special circumstances. So there are.
Sorry, I just have a couple questions.
Yep.
One is asking, what happens if if they did not file their taxes?
So if they did not file taxes, were they required to file taxes? Do they know if they were required?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, so if a single person is required to file taxes if they've earned $12,500 or more. I believe a married couple is, let me pull that up real quick. I believe a married couple is 22.5. I'll get the number on that. But if they meet the threshold required by their filing status, they are required to file taxes. If they do not, they will not be eligible for financial aid until their taxes are completed. So in order to receive financial aid, it is a requirement that you complete your tax return if you are required to do so.
Okay, thanks. That totally answers the question.
Okay. Next, special circumstances. So as I was saying, there are many circumstances that can affect a student's eligibility or the income information that the student has added to the FAFSA. The school reviews that information on a case-by-case basis. That information or that review process is called a professional judgment. So the school has the Department of Ed has given the school the authority to make a professional judgment based on the student's particular situation. As noted, significant change in income from past tax year based on unemployment, underemployment, death, divorce, military service, or natural disaster could be a special circumstance that we can review to determine if we can reduce that income, which would put the student in a position to receive more financial aid eligibility. Unusually high medical expenses, nursing home expenses, significant college costs for dependent students, parent attending college, and what's called a dependency override. The dependency override is a little different than the professional judgment. The dependency override is considered a professional judgment, but it determines the student's dependency, whether they are relying on their parents or not. And that could be in a case where a student has listed on their FAFSA that they're an orphan, that their parents are deceased, that they have no contact with their parent, they're homeless. So those questions on the FAFSA triggers the financial aid to request and require additional information from the student to determine if we can adjust their income based on that special circumstance. So I know a lot of people have questions about special circumstances. What special circumstances are people seeing mostly?
We don't have anyone contributing to the chat.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I mean, people can still put that in there, but in the interest of time, maybe, oh, here's one. Student who lives with their grandparents but are not placed with them. A student lives with a non-custodial relative or friend and not the parents.
Okay.
I think those unique living situations.
Exactly. So that we would determine, did the grandparents adopt the student, what type of relationship the student has with the parent. The Department of Ed requires that if a student has not had physical or any contact with their parent over a year, that we could determine that the student is independent, but the student would have to have 3 supporting statements or 3 people that know the student's situation, maybe a homeless shelter, a church, or some professional organization that may know the student's situation, will accept that type of documentation to determine if the student would be considered independent or not. And when we say independent, where the student does not have to rely on their parents' information to be on the FAFSA. And a parent is not required to enter their information on the FAFSA. They could choose not to enter their information. It just reduces the amount of financial aid that that student will receive. So a student can complete a FAFSA without entering parental information. Again, it's just going to limit them limit them to how much financial aid they're going to be eligible to receive. All right, the studentaid.gov, this is where you can learn how following situations can affect the student's eligibility. So I won't go through those. You can visit the studentaid.gov website to understand how the following situations could affect their eligibility. That would be those special circumstances. I can't hear you. Can you say that one more time?
Yep, okay. Yeah, the question was, special circumstances is not affected if you already have a family contribution that is 0, correct?
Well, not really, because so in a special circumstance where a parent doesn't want to fill out the FAFSA, the student wouldn't get grant money, which is generally the first thing you want to receive when completing a financial aid application. If the student does have a 0 EFC, is the parent involved? Are they asking if the parent is involved or not? That would be important to know.
The parent is involved.
The parent is involved?
Yeah.
Okay. If the parent is involved, then yes, with a 0 EFC, you can't get lower than 0. So if a student has a 0 EFC, that means the student will have the maximum eligibility.
Awesome. Thanks for answering that.
No problem. All right, then we have the type of financial aid offers. We've talked about, I've brushed over the types of eligibility you have: grants, scholarships, loans, student employment. Those are the types of financial aid that a student can receive. The FAFSA will determine those types of eligibility, and the school relate that information to the student. And then I've also included some copies of some award letters. I know we're pressed for time here, but I do have some copies of some award letters included, just so that you can see the total direct cost that's owed to the university, cost of attendance, total of grants and scholarships, is the offer based on a full part-time enrollment status, and how much will the student need to pay the school after subtracting grants and scholarships. So here's an example of a Rasmussen University award letter. Here we offer or explain to the student how much they're going to, didn't mean to do that, how much they're going to be eligible for, what fund source that's coming from, what the status of that fund source, and what quarters those fund sources are going to be used in. The students in particular didn't have loans. They only requested grants and declined in loans. So we awarded the student loans based on this quarterly status. This is a half-time, full-time with a 0 EFC. So this was based on a 0 EFC. Here we break down the charges for each quarter: their course and technology and resource fee, their tuition, and the total for each quarter. The student can subtract their fund source here from their total charges to find out the difference or how much they will owe. I also have some other examples, the St. Cloud State University web letter example, Bethel University. This is for the University of, that's continued, Wichita State University. So we have several slides that show different, how schools award different awards. Also listed in this presentation, you'll find student and parent loan options. The direct subsidized loans, of course, is federal loans that are dispersed by the government. The Parent Plus loan is also a federal loan that's dispersed by the federal government. Private loans for parents and private loans for students. Those are private loan lenders that the parent and student can use to help cover those charges. You'll also have an example of a school bill, the indirect costs, purchasing books, payment plans. You can review that information. You'll also find the average annual expenses for residents and undergraduates attending a full-time school here in Minnesota for the 18-19 year, as well as the estimated net price. So you can review that information. We also have listed in here college billing, how to pay it, how students can pay it, the details of that billing. We also have how much books are frequently used, or at how much a student can expect to pay a book per year. And we also have some resources for understanding aid, which is the next slide here, which is types of aid, federal resources, Minnesota Office of Higher Education, net price calculators. So those are additional resources for any questions you may have regarding specifics of the process. And if there aren't any other questions.
We had one question earlier. How do students know if they're eligible for work study? And maybe that was on the award letter, I'm not sure.
Yep, so what the student will need to do is the school they would complete that federal work study application, and depending on their EFC, that does determine their eligibility as well. So the EFC plays heavily in determining eligibility. So the EFC does determine that federal work study eligibility as well. So the cost of attendance is taken into consideration, and all the other funding, the federal funding that will come off of that cost of attendance helps determine federal work study eligibility.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering that. She asked that question a little while ago, so she's still on too. And I just want to remind people who are still on, you know, even though we sped up a little bit, or there's tons of links in the PowerPoint, that PowerPoint will be in your hands tomorrow. Basically, if you're on this WebEx right now, I will send it out to you tomorrow, if that's helpful, and the recording. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Valana. Are there additional questions from those who are still on? You can put them in the chat and we can answer those. Thank you so much, Valana, for all your knowledge and for your slides. Really appreciate it. We got some comments that this was very helpful. And so just a reminder from Kat and myself, for those of you who have attended today or previous webinars, we really value your feedback and would love for you to fill out our short survey. Thank you. Thanks for joining. If there's no other questions, we will wrap up this session.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Valana.
Thanks, Valana.
Thank you.